get some water. I kind of threw that together like an hour before. So, okay, now I'm going to close the classical part of today with a piece that's been sitting there for me for a while. This is the Paganini Liszt study number 6. I've done a bunch of others here, the La Campanella, for example, last time. But this is the last of Liszt's studies based on Paganini, and it's based on the 24th Caprice for solo violin, which is a famous, iconic piece that inspired, Brahms, Rachmaninoff, many others used it as the basis for their own compositions. It's just a great theme to write variations on. Let me play you the opening, and you'll recognize it because it's famous. But what Liszt does with it is something, kind of different. So it's probably familiar, right? On the violin, at least. All right. So what would I say about? So I told you a lot about Liszt earlier. Paganini predates Liszt by quite a bit. He lived in the late 1700s, early 1800s, but Liszt heard Paganini as a young man, and it floored him. And he, locked himself up to practice for a few years after hearing Paganini. And in that period, he arranged some of Paganini's music, including this. But he did many versions. He did the 1830-something version, and then he revised it in the 1850s. And I'm playing an early 20th century revision by a composer named Busoni, an Italian composer. He just added a few things, changed a few things, and I like what he did with it. So it's Paganini, Liszt, Busoni, study number 6, based on the 24th Caprice. This pedal thing, I think that a lot of the French stuff, you need a lot of pedal, like sauce in the food. But at any rate, I'm going to play some gospel now. First, I'm going to play a slow tempo, somewhat country version, I don't know what you'd call it, but of What a Friend We Have in Jesus. you. I guess I'll close on this one. It's also something I've been working on, and it's tricky. So this is a very familiar gospel tune. It's really a spiritual, and it's When the Saints Go Marching In. So I'm going to see if I can do it in as New Orleans of a style as possible. Because New Orleans, I've never been, but I feel this affinity with it. And New Orleans, I mean, even the food it's this melting pot of so many things. And that's what we are as Americans. I mean, that's what it is. And I read about it. It's interesting that it started out, this was a spiritual sung during the dark period of our history during slavery. It was African-American spiritual, but it was sung very slowly. And it's a lot of the spirituals, it's not clear who wrote it or even if one person wrote it, or they would just sung many, many times, and they changed each time. People would sing it, and they'd sing it in groups. And well, so then fast forward, you have the Civil War, the turn of the century, around that time, and I guess it ends up in New Orleans, and the rest is history. So, but pretty much, I mean, you watch the Ken Burns jazz documentary, it'll tell you. But I think it was brass bands would play this during funerals. But the New Orleans funerals were not a solemn thing. It was more of a celebration of life, maybe. And that's what happened. And so this became more up-tempo, pretty much. And then Louis Armstrong does it in his own incredible way. I'm basing my version off Mahalia Jackson, who is a great idol for me. I think she's one of the greatest musicians who ever lived. And she was from New Orleans, but she lived in Chicago most of her life. So, but anyway, it's just one of those things that has this very interesting history, and it's, so When the Saints Go Marching In. And I didn't even realize it was gospel. I thought, oh, this is jazz, or it's early jazz, or it's blues. But no, it is gospel, of course. So, but at some point when people say, they ask me, what do you play? You play classical? Yeah. So I don't like classical, but you can't say that the Gossec piece, you can't say that that's anything like the Liszt concerto. I mean, they're different. They're different. So at some point, labeling the genre of music becomes silly, I think. So, but anyway, so here. right, well, let's, I guess we'll wrap up here. Thank you all so much for coming. Have a great long weekend. And it's always a pleasure to see you. So, thank you. Oh, I will. Next month.